Hello, everyone. It's Dom here from Esports News UK. I'm at the Endpoint HQ in Sheffield today. Absolutely amazing facility. And I'm joined by the two main men at Endpoint, Ad and Pete. How's it going, guys? Thank you for inviting me. It's been a
Well,
while. I'm
thanks for coming.
finally
Yeah,
here.
Yeah, I'm glad you finally
I can't
made
believe
it.
how much you paid for a ticket to get here.
Yeah, and just so you know, it was nearly £200 to Sheffield on the train. What is going on with
That's
train
not normal.
prices? It's not, I don't know what's happened there. I don't know if I've been scammed or something. It's a return.
Is it
but-
your first class preference? Is that
Yeah,
No,
that's what it
it's
is,
not
isn't it?
even
Yeah.
first class. It's not even. It was like 180, I think. But it was worth it coming here. And I thought, while I'm here checking the place out, it'd be great to catch up with you. We're in 2025. It's New Year. You've been doing this 9 years now. From what I could tell, it was the first video interview that I conducted was with you at back in July 30th, 2016. I've got here. So maybe I wanted to start with. Endpoint turns 9 this summer. Maybe you could reflect on the journey so far.
the roller coaster? Yeah, I mean, it's been a good journey, obviously. I mean, back then when you interviewed me, Endpoint was pretty much just in its real infancy. It wasn't a registered company or anything back then. I'd not met Pete. It was kind of something that I was just starting up with a couple of guys that I knew from the scene previously. And then met Pete about 6, 7 months later. And that's when the Gfinity Elite series happened and everything like that, that really kind of accelerated us. And obviously we've been through COVID, which did its own things to the esports scene. I think it brought more eyeballs on esports and more people came into the industry, and certainly more people watched it than ever before. So we had a period of really rapid growth during COVID. We pretty much 8 times our revenue year on year. And then obviously since COVID has kind of dissipated, I guess, and marketing budgets have gone back into exhibitions and all the things that, real sports, if you want to call it, and everything else. I think we have experienced this esports winter a little bit, as it's been coined. And obviously, for myself and Pete, a lot of that journey for the last 2, 3 years has been evolving. And how do we stay alive, really? I mean, back when you interview, and I had this conversation with someone recently. When you look back at all the ESL Premiership titles and things that we've won, a lot of the teams that we were competing against back then simply aren't around anymore. And, that's yeah, I don't think there's any of them that are around anymore. And that's a huge shame. But really, we've only been able to kind of keep our necks above water because of the fact that we've been willing to kind of change what we do a little bit, and not be afraid to take on new things. It means that we're very busy, and it means that there's a lot of plates to spin and what have you. But that's been the story really of the 9 years, I guess. Is trying to think of ways that we can still be an esports team. We don't want to lose that identity, and it is certainly the riskiest part of the business, don't get me wrong, but that is still who we are at its core. But it's about having these other products, I guess, and other brands around it that will help us be around for years to come.
I think we're always a big believer that if we're pitching for a sponsorship, which is the standard revenue for any esports org, if we're pitching for that sponsorship, do you actually believe in your product that you're going to get the ROI for like that brand? And if you do believe in that, why do you need that brand sometimes? And you can create your own brands and you realistically help them grow through esports. Esports has these amazing viewership. It's great for brand recognition. It's great for a lot of things. So if you actually believe in that, do it yourself sometimes. So it's great to get these sponsorships, but it's also, we can vertically integrate some businesses into our own kind of like ecosystem that we can grow with as well. Like Loadout Media that does media fulfillment. We need it for Endpoint, so we'll do a business on it. Much like Pracrooms, we need boot camps for Endpoint. Let's do it ourselves. And it's not for everyone, but it's kind of like we've kind of cut out some nice niches in the UK that we think we're lacking a little bit, and also that we need it kind of thing, or we're spending a lot of money in already.
You've answered kind of two of my questions there,
That's
because you filled the gap, like you say. And I've noticed this as well. When I started Esports News UK 9, 10 years ago, a lot of the teams and the tournaments I was writing about don't exist. So the ESL Premiership, that's no longer here.
Gfinity Elite Series no longer here.
No longer here. And some of those old teams like Vexed and so on. But you've now got your own UKIC. You've had that a while, but you've had some nice events here around that, and I think you've diversified really well. When I think of esports organisations based in the UK, you're up there for the one that's diversified the most, because you've got UKR, so you've got Pracrooms, you've got this passport authenticator bot. You're doing all kinds of
Passport
interesting
manager, yeah.
things, and before we hit record, we were talking about what kind of events you can do here. So
I'll give you the reason why we've diversified and others necessarily haven't, though, is if you look at all the big kind of other esports organisations in the UK, they've all got VC funding. And it doesn't mean it kind of means they don't necessarily have to, on day one, diversify or think about that, because they've got the backing to do that. We're fully bootstrapped as a company, and one of the only ones in the UK that's got this far to be fully bootstrapped. So we kind of have to do that because we haven't taken external investment. So for us, it's like, well, every penny we're spending, we have to account for it in some ways. So it's kind of like, that's what we're spending. Could we do that a better way? Whereas a lot of these VC-backed companies will just kind of spend it because their business model says they'll make it back later. We can't really do that. So I think that's the only reason why we've diversified quicker than some others necessarily. But
I think, like Pete said earlier, and you touched on there, a lot of it has been driven by our need, in terms of, we need boot camps. Let's build a boot camp space. Whilst we're at it, we can then sell that to other people. We need, even with the passport, we needed a password manager. We happen to use Discord. We might have a product here that we can take to market. Let's explore that. And the same with media. We needed a media studio. We have one now in the facility. Why don't we go out and try and acquire clients that we can then sell that as a service to? So a lot of it has been just driven by stuff that we need, that we don't necessarily, like Pete said, we don't have the budget to just frivolously spend it and hire studios here and there and whatever. Whereas, it's an investment to invest in building this. But if we know that there's a potential for us to realize revenue from it as well, then it makes it a much more sustainable investment.
We're going out to pitch to financial advisors for media for here. It doesn't have to be esports, but it'll pay the bills for esports is the hope.
Anyway. Clever. It's clever because you're identifying needs, and then you're meeting those needs by doing it yourself.
Yeah.
I think that's really important. And you have to ask as well, 2025, Pete, you tweeted something new coming in 2025. The Endpoint account tweeted big things coming in 2025.
Yeah.
So can you tell us what that is? And obviously we'll try to put this interview out when it's announced so we can, make a splash about it.
Sure, yeah. So we just got a partnership with TikTok. So for us, Endpoint as a brand is going to kind of split into two, but they work together still. So you have Team Endpoint, or Endpoint Sex, which is our kind of professional esports teams, and then we're going to have Endpoint Live, which is going to be our creator network. So we've had creators for the last, full 8 years really.
Yeah, more or less.
But we've always kind of struggled to, should we say, monetize them, or how do we integrate them into Endpoint as a brand? And realistically, this TikTok partnership is helping us do that. So it doesn't matter how large the creator is. Could be someone who's getting one concurrent viewer all the way up to thousands of concurrent viewers. We can cater for them here at Endpoint. We've got this amazing asset with this facility here in Sheffield. And for us, it's going to be onboarding any creator in the UK or Ireland that wants to get involved. That could be a part of Endpoint Live, and we can help them as a community grow. And we'll give them all the resources to do that. TikTok are telling us the secret sources are worth how to stream on TikTok Live, and we're going to give that to the creators. We'll help them with schedules. We'll help them with all sorts. And as they grow, if they're large enough, the larger ones can start making use of our facility as well. Start making use of our staff's time, get headshots, do podcasts, do boot camps. The traditional model of getting esports teams into professional events, we are likely to do content creator teams who have an interest in that game into esports events, and then we create a bunch of media around that. We can help those content creators get more viewers because they're at a full esports bootcamp facility, and they can get in-person kind of content instead of just in their bedrooms, as it were. And we can actually really professionalize the whole thing for them and us, and it's a great partnership essentially and then we can bring sponsorships and so on to them as well, and all sorts. So yeah, Endpoint Live, which is coming end of January, in 2025. Yeah, so end of this month, I was recording him.
And I think for us, it's been about, over the years, we've had a lot of people reach out to us and say, they'd love to be a content creator for Endpoint, and we've never quite got that model right, I don't think. You know, we have creators that we work closely with and have done for a number of years, and they're great, and we've had great relationships with them. But it's about how can we scale that? And we've never been big believers of, yeah, sure, you can represent us, just slap a logo on, and you know, we won't be involved. We'll be very hands off. We always try and, you know, act as a family and look after people that are under the Endpoint banner, and this will allow us to do that because we can have a closer relationship with them in terms of how they're performing on TikTok, and we've got that contact there and that direct communication with TikTok, and actually give them guidance and tools, and you know, pretend like we know what we're talking about because it's coming from the people that are obviously building the platform. So it feels like we're able to have more of a value add than just allowing them to have a logo and be part of it for what felt like a very little point from us.
It's also not just TikTok. I just want to reiterate that in terms of love creators that are on Twitch, YouTube, everything, but they all allow you to multi-stream now. So why not do it on at the same time and create yourself another revenue source for them, and actually be able to, you know, TikTok's goal was really to make anyone into be able to have TikTok as their main income and be a full-time thing for them. So it's just us helping people become full-time at content creation, essentially.
Well, I have to say, you know, the content I do, yes, I do my articles. I've had to diversify as well. TikTok has been the video platform that's been the best one for me. I've grown in recent years, and that secret sauce sounds good. I'll have to come up.
Yeah.
Get that info.
I just want to say it's completely free for any creators to join as well. It's gonna be, everything's it's a win-win partnership for both parties there. So and just a value add from both sides is the hope. So
yeah. Do you think we'll see more content? You know, I mean, esports in the early days, YouTube is still used by, I guess, some of the bigger creators and teams and so on. It's that word diversification. It seems to be, you know, that seems to be happening in esports now. Obviously, Twitter, we're seeing more longer form videos on Twitter, or X as it is, as well. Do you think it's the case of viewers in the future for esports? You know, teams need to be where those viewers are, and you need to be mindful of new platforms.
Yeah, it's actually one of the biggest mistakes I think we made from Endpoint side. When we first launched, so first 3 years of Endpoint, me and Adam were putting money in every month basically, and it wasn't a profitable thing. It was a hobby trying to make it into a living. And in that 3 years, we didn't have a social media manager, for example. That would have been the one person we should have just put money in straight away instead of the esports teams. We should have had that, and it was me and Adam doing it. And
we hated it.
And we hated it. Yeah, of course we did. Of course we did. But we concentrated so much on Twitter at the start, and we didn't have. So we weren't doing Twitter, YouTube, Instagram all at the same time. We just did Twitter basically. So our fan base on there is larger than other platforms, and I really regret that, because if we had done everything from the start, we could have been bigger on every platform, and also not be so reliant on Twitter, which is a dying platform right now. It is definitely dying. And especially if you look at the analytics behind month on month and numbers and stuff, and it's just.
Is that for you? What you're
that's
seeing?
For us, yeah. Our numbers have crashed. Yeah,
and I'm
Twitter,
seeing brands, you know, the UK games industry trade body, Yuki, have pretty much said the other week, we're not using Twitter anymore. They've gone over to Blue Sky. So it's making me think I need to share some of my content. But from what I'm told from some social media experts out there, you know, you don't want to just paste your same content on different platforms.
You don't. It's
I don't have loads of time to do that.
Definitely not. Yeah, and so you have to choose in some ways as well with how your size. So yeah, once we got a social media manager though, we got a woman called Rhiannon, who is fantastic. She's been with us for the last 4-5 years now. Yeah, she's been with us the whole time, and that massively helped us. I don't know where I was going with that, but yeah, that was
it's good. We're sort of meandering on the future of you know, content platforms and
so long form, wasn't it, the question?
Yeah, I don't think content types are going away. I think it's just there's different audiences, and you have to cater to all those audiences. Like you know, YouTube isn't dying, and YouTube content will always do well if it's made correctly, and the same thing with short form. I think it's just making sure that you apply yourself equally in those areas and that you put the right kind of content out there. You know, I don't think YouTube Shorts does as well as TikTok, because TikTok seems more that platform for that short form content. But, you know, you want to still have a presence there. And so for us, it's about, trying to, you've always got to tread that balance, you know, and make sure that you cater into both audiences.
YouTube's definitely king for monetization. So if you can get YouTube right, you can make a killing. Like it's really good. But I do think YouTube is super hard for esports as a niche. I just don't think, even if you look at the top organizations, G2, FaZe, any of them, they're not doing well on YouTube still. You know, even if they get these top Counter-Strike teams and you look at the viewership, it's in the tens of thousands, maybe occasionally in the hundreds of thousands. But can you imagine how much money they're putting into those platforms to create those videos and how much they pay their salaries? There's no way YouTube even slightly pays that back. So we've always struggled. We put a lot of effort into you know, long form for our pro teams. It's never going to pay itself back. So
on that topic of creators as well, because we had this chat just before we hit record with the cameras going live. I know you're not a League of Legends organisation as such, but I always ask, are you going to go into League of Legends? But the NLC, the UK Nordics League, this year is having a bit of a resurgence because we're seeing Cajal, who is the king of League of Legends content right now. His streams get more views than the official Riot broadcast at Worlds and so on. He's formed a team that he's put in there, and it's just going to bring in loads of views. And then we've had a few other teams have followed suit. Oh, Cajal's in. You know, we're going to, whether it was because of that reason or not, they're forming some creator teams. You know, Nord Esports are more of a smaller org that launched just a few years ago. Have a creator in their team as well. And you know, I feel like from what you were saying there, and we're seeing this trend of some esports teams. You know, the likes of Disguised Toast doing his esports team. You know, there's been a few creators coming up. I think Amaranth is in Counter-Strike now, right? I don't follow that so closely because it's not UK as such, but what are your views there? And this stuff you're doing with TikTok, do you feel that's where esports is going a bit more? We're going to have more creator teams, maybe.
Yeah, you got Moist as well with Critical.
Rocket League.
I do think. Yeah, you look at K Corp and you look at Gentlemates. They're all the big ones. Yeah, I do think it's a big part. And you know, any massive creator looking, feel free to invest in us. We're welcome to do that as well. But yeah, no, I think that is a future for sure. It's a natural.
To be honest, I think it's coming at it from the opposite angle. I think for so long, esports organizations like ourselves have been picking up players and everything and trying to get players to do media and grow their brand and grow that influence and everything like that. And players, in a lot of times, are very reluctant to do so, you know, and I understand that. Obviously, they want to focus on their craft and whatnot. But every now and again, you'll get people that do cross over. So in Rocket League, the obvious example is like apparently Jack and what, and he does a very good job of having that balance between content and professional play, and he does both very well. So I think what's happening in now is that these players that have managed to build up a brand like Cajal and everything are realizing that actually I could get a bunch of people that have that same attitude, and we can compete in. It doesn't matter which league you're competing in at that level, because you're going to get the fan base and you're going to get the viewers, because people are tuning in to see those influencers compete, and they're tuning in to be a part of that story and see how they do. Not necessarily about, they know that they're not going to go and win the cup or the tournament in terms of the LEC or whatever it's called. Sorry, my league is awful. But NLC, but they're obviously not in the LEC, so they're not going to win the top championship. But it's about being part of that journey and following those creators that they've kind of watched over the years and fallen in love with. And so, and I do think that we're going to see more of that, because really, audience is king. You know, whenever you're competing for titles, you're competing for that kind of identity and to build up a fan base through success. But actually, if you can build up a fan base through individual influencers it's just about getting those people watching you, and that's really what matters to a team. So either approach is
the tough part is still, and we've always had with the pros, even though a pro does media, and the same will apply for content creators. Why will the viewer or fan like Endpoint and not that individual? And that's still a massive issue, and one that we need to figure out. But it's but I think we're doing that with the Endpoint Live stuff. I think what we will give them and build a home around here, and it almost be a creator place or safe place for them to be. We can tell that story, I think, and I think it'll be good. But
yeah, it's interesting. That is a tough question to answer. I look at G2 and I look at oh gosh, what's his name now? He's a Swedish guy, and he plays NUEL. It's a League of Legends thing, but he's integrated quite nicely with the G2 players. He's in their videos. They do fun videos together.
Yeah, GT
the,
do it well, for
the
sure.
league community might lynch me for forgetting his name, and apologies, but he's a loud, shouty, funny guy. But he integrates well. He's in all the content with the players and stuff,
Yeah.
and he wants to be.
And I think that's all the orgs can do, is try and use these influencers and these content creators to kind of get the team brand out there in the hope that some of them will have that natural connection and turn into fans.
Yeah.
But you've got to realize, as an organization, at the end of the day, they are going to be followers of that influencer first and foremost.
Yeah.
And it's going to be very hard to retain that fan if that influencer was then to leave onto different pastures,
Yeah. I'm conscious of time, so I'm going to try and whittle through our last 3 points. We have meandered, we've covered a lot here anyway, but I have to ask about Counter-Strike because it's your main game. It's always been your main game. I think Counter-Strike is one of the UK's it is one of the UK's most followed esports. I think it's Call of Duty and Counter-Strike and so on. And, a few years ago, Valorant came out and there was a bit of uncertainty, a few players hopping over, but Counter-Strike has proven it's here to stay. I love I'm League of Legends, but I love the Counter-Strike ecosystem. We had the Blast Spring Final in London last year. We've got another one coming up later this year, I think in August. Yeah. And I think you won this Intel Monsters Reloaded last year. You didn't quite qualify, for the bigger tournaments and the majors and so on. But you still got that UK core, Mighty Max and so on. And a post on your website by Tom Coles said recently that the player break represents an opportunity to evaluate the position of, so we can start strongly in January. So is there anything you can tell us about what's next for your Counter-Strike team and ambitions?
Yeah, we're in the middle of conversations right now, should we say, about how that looks. I don't think the results we've had in the last 6 months are not really kind of like, I wouldn't say they're up to our standard, but they're also not up to the player standards. And I think we're having those conversations about what needs to be done to kind of move forward and keep going, which we will be. But we're actually without a coach right now, so we need to find a new coach. We're going through some conversations around team agreements and kind of just having a set of rules that we expect and what the players expect. And even if we bring new players in, it will help them see it and be like, okay, this is what Endpoint expects when I'm with them, which is great. And I think we've been a bit soft in the past on that kind of stuff. But in terms of team lineup, what we're doing, we're still in conversations like now at the moment.
Yeah.
But we're still very committed to Counter-Strike. We're just figuring it out, and it's a tough one for sure.
Yeah, we're not naive or like ignorant to the fact that it hasn't been the year that we wanted to have in Counter-Strike, and it's certainly, we're far from the level that we've been at previously. So for us, it's been figuring that out. But I mean, for Counter-Strike in general, and maybe this is a symptom of that, but like, we've been focused this year in delivering UKSE and kind of supporting the grassroots Counter-Strike scene and everything. And maybe that's taken our time away from the main team, and we've maybe missed a few kind of obvious issues there. But Counter-Strike as a whole, because of UKSE, I think we're seeing incredible, numbers. So like last season, we had 93 teams take part in that season. And that's great, to see that level of activity in Counter-Strike in the UK is incredible.
On that note, that ties me in perfectly with my next question, which is around your views on UK esports. Because when I think of Counter-Strike in the UK, I also think of Epic Land. Of course, had a record event recently last year. Obviously, we've seen the closure of Insomnia. Sadly, I will say sadly, because some people, a lot of the Counter-Strike community have complained in the past about Insomnia and the ticket prices and so on. But it is sad that we haven't got that anymore. What are your views on the state of the UK right now? I guess given what you said about a lot of teams have gone.
Insomnia was a big hit. I mean, me and Adam both went to the same Insomnias back in I-20s. We didn't know each other back then, but you were playing COD, I was playing Counter-Strike. But it's a massive hit. I mean, Epic Land, John's doing a great job. I think we're doing some okay things with UKIC. I think we could be doing more as well, but I think we're doing some good things. It's a tough scene. It's a tough scene to monetize, and I'm sure you know that as well from a journalist's perspective. It's a tough scene to monetize, especially from a grassroots side. And I think there are some really good brands that are getting involved, but we just need more of those brands getting involved. And I think some of them have been burnt in the past for like bad activations they've done with certain people. So it's just kind of,
I feel like now's a
going
good
nuts.
time to
It
get
is,
those
it
for
really
those
is,
brands.
yeah, it
I'm not
really
just
is, yeah.
saying this, give me your money kind of thing.
No, it really is. Yeah.
I'm not just saying me. Look at all the other things going on around the UK. You know, British Esports have their Sunderland facility, and caveat, yes, I've worked for them full time in the past. So, but you know, we have all these things. There's various organisations in London, gaming cafes, gaming bars. I feel like we've gone through some of the harder parts of the so-called esports winter, and I feel like now's a good time to ramp up and be a part of it.
I think it's been very kind of good and bad. You know, like last year we saw more events in the UK than we have for a long time. Major events. You know, we had League of Legends, we've got Rocket League, we've had the Apex Championship. There's been a lot of high profile events in the UK recently. But I still think that esports as an industry is struggling in the UK from a business perspective because of the fact that whether it's a cultural thing, whether it's a recognition of esports, you know, the fact that we had Commonwealth Games esports in Birmingham, and yet the government still refuses to acknowledge that esports is an actual thing is bonkers. You know, there's a huge lack of funding. There's a huge lack of other areas that I think is really starting to hurt the scene. I think we've seen in the past so many great brands and so many great people come into the scene and teams and everything, but they've struggled to stay alive because of the fact that there isn't a great deal of national support, you know, whether that's funding, whether that's people getting behind it or whatever. And I think that's why it struggled. And like Pete said, I think a lot of brands that did dip their toes in maybe didn't have the best experience because there has been a lot of cowboys in the past, you know, let's face it. But I'm really hopeful that we're starting to come through another evolution of that, and that we're going to see more brands take another chance on it. You know, it's a new kind of breed of marketing staff, and people are more aware of the impact of gaming and esports and influencers, and so yeah, I'm really hopeful that that is starting to change. But you know, I think it has to, being completely honest.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned government because, and the point you said there, I was going to ask about your views on government. Yes, UK have this. They did a Westminster Games Week a few months back. They have this committee they've formed. I know British Esports has links with government as well, and I was at a networking thing. It might have been the Westminster Games Week, and I was talking to someone. You know, I won't say who, but someone in a position of power, and they said to me, "What are your views on esports? How can we, you know, help in the UK, Dom? But don't just say funding." It's like, well, what else is there? Recognition, yeah, it'd be nice to have more
A sick
recognition.
Yeah,
But
sick code.
they're still-
We had an issue with a coach.
It's still going on.
Yeah,
Sick codes.
Everyone knows that we had a Canadian coach in our Counterfeit team, and his visa in the UK, because he was on a study visa, expired, and we wanted to keep him in the country. But we were struggling to do that via official channels because there isn't a sick code for being an esports coach. If he was a hot air balloon pilot, it would have been a completely different
or
thing.
a body. There's like sporting bodies like football. But there's
or
not
a
one for
national
esports.
sporting body or anything like that. And so it's just very hard sometimes to kind of, you know, be in this industry that refuses to get recognized at the levels that it should be. And you know, the UK, we've always been the pioneers. We've always been at the forefront of a lot of technological advancements and sport advancements. This is where football was born. This is where a lot of sports have kind of been born, and everything like that. And yet I don't know what it is with esports. They just seem to be really ignorant, and you know, I'm hopeful that that's going to change.
It just takes time.
Yeah.
But it's
I'm
been
not
taking
putting
time for a
money
long
on
time,
it.
yeah.
Have you had
Yeah.
an MP visit here? Your local
No,
MP?
no,
Get them in.
we
Local
have-
MP of Sheffield. I don't know your name yet, but come in here.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've had conversations with local council and everything like that, and we get great support from local authorities in terms
Right,
of business
okay.
development and what have
Not
you.
an esports thing. Just
Not
a business thing.
esports specific.
Yeah.
That's just as a local business, right?
Yeah.
But you know, nothing at a kind of governance level. You know, nothing from that point of view.
Or
Well,
grants
hopefully
or
that can
anything.
change.
Yeah. And I think, you know, I mentioned about the events coming into the UK. They've got to realise the amount of money and the amount of people that brought into the UK. You know, they can only ignore it for so long. And I think annoyingly, that's the thing that's going to make them realise. Yeah.
In the 8-9 years, we've managed to get 2 grants. They've been small ones, like 5-10K ones, kind of thing. One of them was on equipment for loadout media for like creative stuff, and one of them was on development for Passport. How is that anything about what, if you think about the history of Endpoint and what it is, there's nothing there for support at all.
Yeah, because we get pigeonholed in. We have to pigeonhole ourselves into other areas of the business that isn't esports, because there just isn't anything out there. You know, typically, if you're going for funding for anything in our industry, you have to go through creative routes. You know, things like along with the arts and music and what have you. And it doesn't feel like a great fit, if I'm honest. But that's just because they refuse to put us alongside sports.
It's frustrating, isn't it? Guys, I could talk with you all day. I'm passionate, obviously, about UK sports. You guys are as well. Just to wrap it up then, is there anything else you'd like to add? I know I didn't touch on Rocket League too much. You've recently sort of stepped away from RLCS, but you do have some great teams practicing here in your Pracrooms facilities as well. So anything else you'd like to add, maybe with a Rocket League angle?
I'll just say thank you to our sponsors that have been with us for so many years, because they are really what keeps esports alive in the UK. So CX, Overclockers, Noble Chairs, there's been a bunch of others as well, but those ones have been around with us for 4, 5, 6 years, so on. So yeah, I'd say a big thanks to them. But
yeah, absolutely, yeah. And the Rocket League thing is a real shame. You know, we'd still love Rocket League as a game. I just think the proposition from Epic as it is now is just not viable for us, and obviously a lot of teams. You know, we're not the only team to back out. The fact that the world champions no longer have a team is quite telling. So
top 2.
Well, yeah, top 2.
Yeah, G2 and BDS.
Yeah, so I think that's quite telling. And hopefully that situation will change, because we'd love to be in Rocket League. But yeah, never say never.
Maybe constant creative team.
Yeah. Maybe you'll see us there in some other form.
Never say never and never stop.
Yeah, absolutely.
And on that note, you know, I wish you all the best of luck, guys. I truly do. You one of the orgs that are doing all the right things, I think, in UK sports, and I think the best is yet to come. That's my personal view. So, you know, good luck in 2025 and beyond. And thanks everyone for watching this interview. And I extend my thanks again to Endpoint for letting me be here in this amazing recording facility, doing this.
And sign up to Dom's Patron.
Thank you. Yeah, I should shout about it more. My Patreon. A lot of people don't know that it actually exists, but it does exist. So yeah, thanks everyone, and see you next time.
Yeah, cheers.